Are you thinking about moving to Missoula, Montana, but you're a little hesitant to purchase a home right off the bat? You're thinking about renting before you buy once you move. In today's video, we are going to talk about the pros and cons of renting versus the pros and cons of buying a home as soon as you make your way here to Missoula, Montana. So let's get after it right now. So let's start off strong. Renting. Now, renting provides so much flexibility once you move to a new area like Missoula, Montana. Now, keep in mind, you've never been here. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what you like, what you don't like, what you don't know. You don't know, right? And renting has a ton of flexibility. So if you want to live somewhere for 6 months or a year or even 2 years, you can have that flexibility on. You can live in this neighborhood for a year and then you're like, nope, that neighborhood just wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't right for our family. So let's try out this neighborhood. Now you have that flexibility to just pick up and go, and you're not tied down, as in when you buy a home, you are a little more tied down. So, pro of renting once you get to Missoula is definitely flexibility. Pro number 2 of renting as soon as you get to Missoula is when you're renting, you are not responsible for the maintenance of your home. Now, when we first moved to Missoula, we did rent and we rented for about 6 months. And a big part of that was because I did not have any resources to research while we were in the Washington, D.C. area looking or researching. I didn't have a YouTube channel like this one in particular to drive around, show me the neighborhoods, talk to me about the pros, and actually give me real cons that I could relate to. So I didn't have a YouTube channel to refer to like this one. I didn't have a local expert who was willing to dedicate their time to answering my questions. Who was I, some just Joe Schmo over on the East Coast, a wannabe wanting to move to Montana? And especially if you mention that you're from out of state and you're wanting to move to Montana, just nobody wanted to dedicate their time to me. So we came in blind. We had no idea. We just knew that we loved it and we wanted to figure it out. So we rented. And it was really nice because the dishwasher broke. Called the landlord and I was like, hey, landlord, my dishwasher doesn't work. Could you please fix it? He called a repair guy the next day and I didn't have to foot the bill. One of the toilets wasn't flushing properly. Nothing that we had done to it. Plumber came out the next day and I didn't have to foot the bill. Oh, and actually we did get a new stove while we lived there, which was really nice because the one that we had just died from one day to another. They bought us a brand new stove. They had painted and put in brand new carpet before we moved in. Didn't have to pay a dime and it was really, really nice. So we had the flexibility of living there for a little while, checking out Missoula, deciding where we ultimately wanted to land. And I didn't have to foot the bill for anything that broke inside the rental. And that was really, really nice. All right. Another big pro to renting as soon as you get to Missoula, Montana is you don't have to deal with the fluctuating real estate market. You don't have to deal with interest rates. You don't have to deal with property taxes increasing. You know what? That's all on your landlord. Or the HOA fees going up. That no problem for me because that doesn't apply to me as a renter, right? That's all on your landlord. So your financial risk is low when you rent. You have a set rent for X period of time. Hopefully they don't raise it too much after that period of time. But you have the same rent and you can count on it from month to month. It's going to be the same thing and you have that commitment. So it is financially a low risk. So you know what you're gonna get into without the fluctuating real estate market. But you just don't have to deal with it, don't have to think about it. So another huge pro to renting right away as opposed to buying. All right, now let's talk about some negatives to renting as soon as you get to Missoula from another state is while yes, it is low financial risk and you don't have to keep the real estate market in mind with the interest rates and everything, your landlord can from one time to another decide I'm going to up your rent or I'm selling the house. That actually happened to me quite a few years ago. We did have a contract in place for a full year, and at 9 months, the landlord was like, you either move, you have 30 days to move, or I'm selling. And I did end up moving. Come to find out that he was lying. He wasn't going to sell. He just wanted to get a new renter in and then raised the rent $600. And this was pre-COVID. So increasing it that much. He did also offer to increase he said it was 30 days to move out or he was going to sell. He didn't even give me the option to raise my rent. No, because he wanted a new seller. He wanted a new renter to increase it $600. Like, I'm sorry, what? No. And then it's been a disaster post-COVID where landlords are getting greedy and they are just increasing their rent and it's getting really expensive. So yes, financial risk low with not having a mortgage, but somebody else is controlling your financial situation. So for me, that's a huge con. Another huge con to renting is you never own the place. So when we moved into our rental here in Missoula, after a couple months, the landlord sent in a neutral third party to do a home check to make sure that we were taking care of the home and to make sure we weren't breaking anything or making sure we were clean enough to be in the property. And the gentleman that came over, he was taking pictures of every nook and cranny of that house, including our personal things, which he told me and assured me that he would delete it when he was done with the inspection. But the landlord was going to see how I lived. I don't know. That seems creepy to me. I understand why a landlord would do that because somebody was, I don't know, ruining the carpet. You would want to mitigate it at 2 months as opposed to at 10 months, right? When it's completely destroyed, no going back. I understand that. But as a renter, I almost felt violated, like somebody coming into my space, taking pictures of everywhere. It was weird. And apparently that's common practice. I don't know. Another thing about, especially Missoula's renting, it is hard to get a rental in Missoula. Hard. Now, not to brag, but my husband and I, we both have credit scores of over 800. And we do well for ourselves. And we have very low rental history because we've always owned our homes prior to moving to Missoula. So we had low rental history, but we owned our home back in the DC area. And we applied to so many places and were denied left and right. Over 800 credit scores for both of us, good incomes, and we owned, so that's more than renting. We got denied left and right. It was so hard to find a place. We found a place 2 weeks before we moved. Before that, I was like, well, we're going to move into a hotel or an Airbnb. I don't know where we're going to live because we already had movers ready and scheduled out. We had already sold our home back in the DC area. We didn't have a place to live up until 2 weeks before. It was beyond stressful. And I had just 4 months old, just had a baby. So if that's not stressful, I don't know what is. So, and then on top of applying and then being denied, application was about $50 to $100 each person. So because we are a couple with 2 children, we both had to apply. So that's $200 out the door. And they could say no for literally whatever reason they wanted. And we have no idea. They would just say no. Can I have my money back? No, because that's their processing fee. Anyways, another major con to renting, especially here in Missoula. 1, it's hard. 2, they want for you to prove your finances. 3, they want you to be able to pay the rent, but like 3x your monthly income and like prove that, which I think is a lot, but I understand why a landlord would do that or why a property management company would do that. But that's asking a lot, and asking for first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, 3x. The rent has to be 3x their income, good credit history, no evictions, all of these stipulations. And then finding a rental with a dog, forget about it. Our dog had to stay back in the DC area with my parents. There was no way, we barely got into this rental. There was no way we were going to find a rental with a dog. Plus, she's a pit bull. So that's even harder because, yes, there are breed restrictions. And I can go off on a tangent, a mean tangent about pit bulls and breed restrictions. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but that was a whole separate issue. So separating myself from my dog, separating my children from my dog was very emotional. So finding a rental with space for a dog or 2, needle in a haystack. Another con to renting in Missoula in particular is I wouldn't go with what you just see on Zillow. So I would check property management, their specific websites. I would check Facebook Marketplace. I would check Craigslist. I would get into some of the Missoula groups. There's quite a few. And if you reach out to me, I can send you a list of the places that you can look. The one that I have found most successful for others is Facebook Marketplace and Facebook groups, where just it's a private landlord looking to rent a room, half a house. There's a lot of duplexes and triplexes in the area. So oftentimes the landlord lives in one and then they rent out the other one. So private landlords tend to be more successful than property management companies. There are some really big property management companies here in Missoula, and reaching out to them often, talking to them often, and getting on those waiting lists as well. So if they know their property is going to be vacant in 30 days, you can get on that waiting list right now. But the negative to that is you don't know what the place looks like. You don't know where it is. That's actually how we got our rental in Missoula, is we got on a waiting list and the property management company called us and said, we have a home that's available in 30 days. Will you take it? And we were like, yes, because we were so desperate to find a place to live. And I was like, so where is it? Oh, we can't tell you where it is. I'm sorry, what? I couldn't even Google it on the map. So let's get into some of the pros to buying right off the bat instead of renting, because I went on quite a few cons of renting. So let's jump into the pros, shall we? The biggest pro to buying right off the bat is you have me as your resource, right? You have these YouTube videos where I do a lot of driving tours, driving around. If there's a neighborhood that you see on the map or you see on one of the property searches that we set up for you, you want a neighborhood that I haven't covered, let me know. I'm happy to drive around that neighborhood and talk about it and dive into it. But the biggest pro to buying right off the bat is equity. If you are planning on staying in a specific area for at least 2 years, you will build equity if you buy right away. And let's just say, because I actually just spoke with some buyers about this scenario specifically, they wanted to buy right away, get a lay of the land, and then on their own timeline, within a year or within 2 years, then they would find their forever home. And they would have that time to explore Missoula County and Ravalli County. And then they were planning on private landlording, renting out their home or part of their home or Airbnb-ing it, still having that flexibility. If his parents came into town, they could stay there. And then they could Airbnb it the other 2 weekends that his parents weren't there. Or if they had friends coming into town and they wanted to be right in Missoula, and if they lived a little bit further out, their friends could stay there. So having that investment property, having that equity, even if you don't plan on renting out your space and buying another one, that's totally fine. Save up that equity, build that equity, and use that as a down payment for your second home. Because when you're renting, you're paying the landlord or the property management's mortgage, which is ultimately somebody is paying the mortgage, right? You're building their equity. Why not build your own equity? Build that credit, up that credit score, build that equity so you can use that money on whatever you choose. Your next home, your forever home. If you decide that this first home that you buy right off the bat, it's great, but don't want to stay here forever, that's totally fine. Or if you buy that first home here in Missoula and then in 2 years you have 3 babies, you'll need a bigger home. And that's totally fine because you are building that equity over time. Another huge pro to buying a home right off the bat is you can do what you want with your property. Now, it seems kind of petty and kind of silly, but in a rental, you can't paint because then you're going to have to paint it back, right? If I want to paint my wall, I want to paint my wall. We own this house, but we painted my daughter an accent wall of a light purple, and she picked it out. Did I have to ask for anybody's permission? Absolutely not, because I'm an adult and I don't feel like I need to ask for people's permission to paint. And then my son has a navy blue accent wall in his room, and I didn't have to ask anybody for permission. And we needed new gutters. My husband did it. I didn't have to ask for anybody's permission. But yes, we had to eat the cost, right? But then the gutters and then the drainage on how but water drips down these things, and it makes sure that the water drains away from the foundation of the home. And I got to pick it out. I didn't have to ask for the landlord to pick it out. And I got to pick out the lights that I wanted, the chandelier that I wanted. And then I actually decided that I didn't want that chandelier and I wanted something different. I didn't have to ask for permission. And that is a huge one for me, because once you get to a certain point in your life, I don't like to ask permission. So in any renovation that you make in your home, unless it's a huge DIY screw up, which happens, but my husband is very handy dandy, and it's great because any renovation, if we do decide to sell down the road, it will just add value to the home. Now, I'm not talking about the paint specifically, but the other decisions that we make about the home, like putting a concrete driving, like a pad in front of the garage. We want to put in a concrete pad. One, because I want my son and daughter to ride their bikes out there in the summertime. Right now it's a bunch of rocks, but putting in concrete as opposed to gravel will add value to my home in general. So any renovations that you make, yes, you are paying out of pocket as opposed to when you're renting, your landlord is paying, but you can 3x your investment or more depending on if you do a whole kitchen renovation, kitchen renovations will 3x, 4x, 5x your investment when you go to sell. So you're not losing money. What you do now will have a long-term positive outcome for you. Just think of it like that. Now, yes, when you buy a home, you do have to consider interest rates and your monthly mortgage, unless you're buying cash, that's really nice. But most people can't do that. So yes, you do have to keep in mind interest rates. And if you think that the interest rate is too high now, the option for refinancing is always there. Now, what a lot of real estate agents or a lot of lenders don't tell you is, yes, it costs money if you choose to refinance down the road, but the outcome will ultimately decrease your monthly payment. So yes, you are paying money to have lower payments in a nutshell. So if you're not happy with the interest rate now, you can always refinance down the road. And let's say that the interest rate continues to go up or stays the same or bumps up, then you'll feel lucky that you bought at this specific interest rate. So you do have options and you are playing the real estate market, but especially here in Missoula and Montana, just like Montana in particular, because Montana it's hot. People want to move here. Your home is not going to lose its value unless it's like DIY screw up, which I keep mentioning that because I've seen some things. Your home is not going to lose its value. If anything, it's going to increase 3, 4, 5x, especially over a longer period of time. So be confident that your home and your land are going to pay off in the end. So there are plenty of positives to renting. Those are obvious. There are a ton of negatives to renting, just like in general, negatives. But there are a ton of positives for buying right off the bat. And I don't ever want you to feel pressured about buying, because we personally rented as soon as we got to Missoula, and we took our time. We took 6 months to decide that we no longer wanted to live in Missoula and we wanted to buy a home in Ravalli County. And we decided that after 6 months, we broke the lease. And you know what? That's another positive of buying a home. And if you decide to break your lease, it's okay, because there is a laundry list of people that want your rental. So with us moving out, breaking the lease, as long as we timed it according to when they were able to bring in the new tenants, and it did actually work out perfectly, we didn't have to pay a fee of any kind. So we just told the property management company we're going to leave on this date. And they were like, oh, great, let's set up the next tenants. And they were like, the only thing that we had to facilitate is showings. So we had 2 families that wanted to come look at the home, at the house that we were renting. And I scheduled them strategically, both on the same evening. So I only had to do like major clean once. And they both came on the same evening and they both applied, and only one family made it. And they took over our lease when we bought our house. So breaking your lease, that's okay. And I don't blame you. If you ultimately, taking all of the pros and the cons that we have just talked about, if you take them all and then you ultimately decide that you do want to rent, that's okay. Take your time. What's the rush? There is no rush. But reach out to me. Let me be a resource for you, because even when you're renting, you can still drive around and explore. Or We can go look at a home in a neighborhood that you checked it out and you like that neighborhood and you researched the school and you think it's a good fit for your kids, and a home that you like came to be available and you've been renting for a month. You want to go check it out? Let me know. I got you. I want to make sure that you and your family land in the best place possible. But you got to know the pros and the cons. And here it is, renting or buying. So, my name is Diana Filkins from living in Missoula, Montana, and I get calls, texts, and emails from people just like you seeking assistance with their move to this amazing city. I would be absolutely honored to help you and your family find the right home. So please reach out to me, text, call, email. I will answer you and let me be that resource for you. Until next time, take care. If you're finding value in this video, then go ahead and give that subscribe button a click. That way I can bring more of Missoula's charm to you. And if you haven't done so already, please leave me a comment down below. What are some more pros and cons of renting? What are some pros and cons of buying a home right off the bat as soon as you move here? Let's keep this conversation going down in the comments below. Until next time.